Today we are going to understand about dependency injection ambiguity resolution, and we are going to answer one of the most important Spring Boot interview question. How does Spring Boot decide which bean to inject when multiple beans exist of same type? And we'll be also looking why does Spring Boot throw no qualifying bean error? While looking into these questions, we'll be also go through what is @primary and @qualifier annotations and when to use those. Let's understand this in the easiest way possible. First, let's start with a simple example. Suppose we have an interface payment service and one implementation UPI payment service. Now I have a payment manager class. Inside payment manager class, I'm auto wiring payment service interface, which means I'm injecting the bean. When Spring Boot app starts, it creates one bean of UPI payment service. Spring Boot look for a bean of type payment service. It finds only one bean, which is UPI payment service, and then application run without any problem. No confusion, and application starts successfully. So if you see here, it says that UPI payment processed successfully for user ID this. Now before moving further, let's understand this with a real world example. Imagine a manager asks to his assistants, please bring me a charger. So, if there is only one charger in the room, that person immediately knows which charger to bring. No confusion, assistants will immediately give that charger to the manager. Now, imagine there are multiple chargers in the room, like mobile charger, laptop charger, or tablet charger. And again manager say, please bring me a charger. The first question assistant manager would be thinking about, which charger? Because manager did not specify the charger type. So there are multiple options. That's why assistant's getting confused and she is thinking which charger I should give to manager. Spring Boot behaves exactly the same way. Initially, Spring Boot had only one implementation, which is UPI payment service. So only one option was there, no confusion, everything was working perfectly fine. Now let's make our application more realistic. Suppose we support multiple payment methods. So now we create UPI payment service. Also we create credit card payment service. And both these classes implement the same interface payment service. So if you see here, payment service, it has two implementation. Credit card payment service and UPI payment service. So when Spring Boot starts, it creates UPI payment service bean as well as credit card payment service bean. Now in manager class, when Spring sees auto wired to this payment service interface, Spring gets confused because now there are two possible candidates and Spring is thinking, should I inject UPI payment service or credit card payment service, because these two service implementing the same type or same interface. Just like the charger example, Spring doesn't know which one you want. So instead of making a wrong decision, Spring stops application startups and throw error. So let me run this application and see the behavior. So it is saying as no qualifying bean of type payment service available. Meaning Spring Boot says, I found multiple beans of the same type. Please tell me which one should be injected. And honestly, this is a good thing because Spring prevents ambiguity. So how do we solve this? There are two common solutions for this problem. First one is using @primary annotation. Suppose UPI payment service is our default implementation. Then we can write @primary annotation to this class. Now, whenever Spring finds multiple beans, it automatically chooses the bean marked with @primary. So problem solved. If I go to payment service, we still have two implementation. Credit card payment service, UPI payment service. So let's run this application and see whether it's still throwing the error after using @primary annotation or it resolved. Bingo. application started successfully. And if you see here, UPI payment process for user ID, payment process successfully. So this is working perfectly fine. But what if different places need different implementations? For example, one service needs UPI and another service needs credit card. So if you see here in my payment manager class, I want only UPI payment service. But in my another payment manager class, I want credit card payment service. And if this is the scenario, now primary is not enough. That's where at the rate qualifier comes into the picture. We can write at the rate qualifier annotation and we can pass the name inside it. So we have passed UPI payment service. Now Spring doesn't need to guess. We are explicitly telling Spring inject UPI payment service. Similarly, for other payment manager class as well, we can give qualifier and we can pass the name. So here if you see, we pass credit card payment service. So we are still using the same interface and this interface is still using these two implementation, credit card payment service, UPI payment service. But in payment manager class, we are specifying the name for the particular bean to be get injected. So we are giving qualifier UPI payment service means we are telling bean, hey, please inject UPI payment service for this class. Now in another payment manager class, we are specifying to or we are telling bean, hey, please inject credit card payment service to this class. Now if I run the application, it should not cause any issue and it should run without any problem. So if you see, our application is started successfully without any error, which means that at the rate primary annotation and at the rate qualifier annotation, both are working without any issues. Okay, now let's understand the difference. Primary means this is my default bean and use this unless I specify something else. While qualifier means I am explicitly telling you which bean I want. No guessing is required at the moment. Let's take a real project example. Imagine an e-commerce application. You may have payment service which implemented by Pay payment service, Stripe payment service, PayPal payment service. Now Spring cannot automatically decide which payment gateway should be injected. This is exactly why at the rate primary and at the rate qualifier exist. Now here is one popular Spring Boot interview question. Which one has high priority? Primary or qualifier? The answer is qualifier because developer has explicitly specified the bean. Whenever both are present, Spring follows qualifier. So let's quickly revise whatever we have learned. Implementation means no problem. Application will run without any issue. If multiple implementation, Spring gets confused and throw no qualifying bean error. So use at the rate primary annotation for default bean selection and use at the rate qualifier annotation for explicit bean selection. And remember, at the rate qualifier always wins over primary annotation. So next time Spring Boot throws no qualifying bean error, don't get panic. Spring simply saying, I found multiple beans. Please tell me which one you want. And that's exactly how Spring Boot decides which bean to inject internally.